let me begin first by again introducing, you know, Dr. Jennings, Professor Jennings, and both she and I have been connected to the Gen Ed Corps for quite some time. As she had mentioned, I had served on the 1999 University Curriculum Committee at the time when we were going through the revisions to the Gen Ed Corps and putting in place what we have at this present time. Both of us have since that time served on the SACS Gen Ed Committee and put into place, among other things, the learning objectives that we will talk about that are connected to the present Gen Ed Corps. I will take you through some of the advising issues for the present Gen Ed Corps, and then Professor Jennings will take over and talk to you a little bit about the upcoming revisions that we are in the process of looking into for the general education. So sometimes it's a little bit confusing because we refer to the core in different ways. As you said, I've been getting used to calling it the General Education Core. Some people just refer to it as the core curriculum or the Common Core. But basically, we are looking at what, at the present time, is the 44 credit hour core that all of our university students must take. And this core is actually mandated by the state. And what it is supposed to do, what the mission of the Gen Ed curriculum is that it is supposed to equip our students with a broad knowledge base and to also equip them with competencies for them to become lifelong learners. And this is one point that we need to really understand as advisors, because a lot of the times, you know, we are the advisors for the major, and it's often the student's attitude, and then we kind of feed into it that we just have to get them through the core. And so, you know, we'll see that we'll do the best we can to just get you through the core. But there's more to the Common Core, there's more to the Gen Ed Core than that. That there is information there is competencies there that they must learn and which will equip them to become lifelong learners as they pursue the rest of their major as well. There is, again, our present core is divided into 6 categories, and those categories are subdivided into our communications, math, natural science is up there. I'm losing track. Yes. Yeah, communications, math, natural science, the humanities, social and behavioral sciences, and then our institutional designated option. Now, it was at the time in 1999 when we were working with this core that the university decided that the institutional designated option was going to be a computer science course. And so that's why we have in the core the CS 116 for all of our university students. However, since that time, there has been some departments that have asked for and have been granted permission to include their particular computer course for that, to substitute for that CS 116. And I know that business math and business music and education all have got that substitution in place. What needs to be understood is that those particular substitutions are for the majors of that area only. So we cannot have somebody from sociology coming and taking our music computer course and having that count. It is for the music majors only, etc. Okay, so you will see we've got the curriculum itself can be found on page 46 of our catalog. And one thing we do also want to notice is that when you look at it, the whole core is made up of 100 and 200 level courses. Again, a very important point to make as advisors is because this core is supposed to be finished by the end of the sophomore year. There are some exceptions to that because we have some majors that they actually have to start in their major area, in their major courses, in their first semester freshman year. So that does push them a little bit. But there had been a study done of this. The provost had called all of the departments and all of the schools together and had a study on that. I think it was just last spring. And if there was a reason for your particular majors not finishing their core by their fourth semester, you had to show that there had to be a comparison done to other universities that showed that this was a common practice in universities across the state. So you had to show evidence that this was something that was, again, in practice in other places as well. The other thing to understand, I know Ms. Square kind of touched on this, and that is the grades that are accepted for our Common Core. If they are taking the core in-house, we accept a D or better. That's if they take it here. And as she had said, we don't transfer in any Ds, but they can get a D or better. However, there is room for departments to make some kind of a decision on that as well. For instance, English. If you've got an English major, you certainly do not want to see your English major with a D in English 131. And so there is a little bit of that flexibility that you can actually make your own regulation and policies within the department themselves for that. Again, to reiterate what Ms. Square had said, if a student is transferring in and they are transferring in core complete, we cannot touch this, regardless of the grade. If it is core complete, we cannot then step in and say, oh, but no, we want to change this. Core complete absolutely means core complete, can't touch it. And I think that's all I really have to say about the present core as we have it. And I'm going to hand it over now to Professor Jennings to talk about the revisions that are coming up in 2014.
On this PowerPoint, you see general education and you see core curriculum. That's a redundancy, but it's in SACS uses general education, and the Texas Coordinating Board uses core curriculum. So they mean the same thing. It's just okay. So the general education core curriculum is designed, revised, supported, and assessed by Texas. Texas is one of those states that has a very specific core curriculum. So this makes it possible for students to take their core courses at any public university in Texas and transfer them no problems, as long as they're core complete or as long as they get C or better. And in order to facilitate that, Texas has a common core numbering system, and on the sheet that you have that comes from the undergraduate catalog, you will see on the right-hand side the numbers the transferable numbers that apply in Texas, meaning English 131 is the same as ENGL 1301. Since some of you teach both courses in places, you already know that, but that's very helpful so that you know which courses can be transferred. Every course that is used as part of the core curriculum has to be assessed. It has to be assessed and reported to SACS, the assessment. It has to be assessed and reported to the coordinating board in Texas. When Texas decided on this core curriculum, and actually universities are allowed to set their own core curriculum. So students at Texas, teachers at Texas Tech each developed their own lovely favorite course, and they were putting it in their core catalog, and because students would get credit for it, right? Teachers had huge following, these were wonderful courses, but they were not necessarily assessing them or reporting them. And when several years ago, when they went through the SACS accreditation, they lost it. They were put on probation. This is Texas Tech. Everyone at the top echelon lost their jobs, and they had to, meaning they were doing something that appealed to the students, appealed to the teachers, but they were not doing it in any way that the state or the SACS could assess what was being done, or that what was being done in one course was comparable to other courses. So it's really important that it's accountability after all. In 206, the Higher Education Coordinating Board established the Undergraduate Education Advisory Committee. This group was much influenced by the Association of Colleges and Universities, and they developed, one of the first reports that they developed is Designing Texas Undergraduate Education in the 21st Century. Came out in January 2009, and shortly thereafter, they started working on a revision to the core curriculum. There is now a revised core curriculum. It is set for implementation in 2014, and in fact, we have to start working on it now because of the following. Well, there were two major recommendations. First of all, they decided that 36 hours would be required. This is fewer than the 41, and what they took out were the required labs for non-majors. So 2 hours of labs go by the wayside. If you're not majoring in biology, you don't have to take the biology lab. It's just a 3-hour course. So that goes. And the other thing that they took out as a requirement is the speech course. Now, since it was called communications, I was a little worried that that meant one of the English ones went, but I read all the way to the bottom, and everything else that they've said, they've actually said it this way, except for the speech course, okay? That left the university with two options. And so our options might be speech, communications, that 135, which can be taken as 136 as well, and computer science, which is what is now our university option. But that's not necessarily a given. The university, as a university, has to think through this and decide. Someone suggested at another meeting that why not economics? Why not economics? So between now and then, we actually have to revise our core curriculum. The other thing that the coordinating board said, the other recommendation, is that each of these core courses had to show 4 to 6 of the following objectives. And the objectives are, I think in one of the handouts that I gave you and on the board. Critical thinking, communication skills, empirical and quantitative skills, teamwork, social responsibility, personal responsibility. All of those have to be contained in each and every course. No, not all of those in each and every course. In English, for example, we can forget about empirical and quantitative skills. We don't have to assess that. Most of these gen ed courses, you have to do 4, 5, or 6, depending on which gen ed course you're doing. They require it. And they require that those elements be assessed in them. There's a listserv going on the core curriculum in Texas, and they're discussing whether, for instance, in communications courses, to include effective written, oral, and visual communication. And the question is, does this mean that in English 131 we have to do oral communication? And the answer is yes. However, you can, as an English course, decide that 85% is going to be on written communication and 5% or 10% be on oral. And 5% more on something else, meaning yes, if they're written in, they have to be assessed, but of course, relative to the course, okay? There are guidelines for implementation. Between November 2011 and 2013, we have to develop our courses, and that means we have to look at every one of our core courses and rethink it. Make sure that it has appropriate student learning outcomes, that the definition fits what it does, and of course, as an institution, decide on the two options. In November 13, we have to present to the coordinating board our new revised core curriculum, and they will look at it over the course of a couple of months, and by the spring of 2014, we should get the okay if we've done our homework, and it will be implemented as of 2014. Now, the Texas Coordinating Board, the Higher Education Coordinating Board doesn't let us just flounder on our own with this. They have developed a lower division academic course guide manual. It's as big as a course catalog, and it contains the suggested definitions, course definitions, course catalog descriptions for each of these gen ed courses. And in addition to that, there are developed student learning outcomes for each of these core courses. Now, it's not so much, this is the thinking, that they're telling universities how to teach their courses. No, they asked universities to come and meet with junior colleges and community colleges so they could together set standards to make sure that what was being done in the dual credit courses, in the junior college courses, in the community college courses, actually met the standards that the universities were expecting. In other words, for a university, these are almost minimal requirements. And this had a lot of participation and went over through a year. 3 or 4 people at the university served on these committees. Dr. Wen served in the history, social sciences. I served on the English humanities one, meaning the sophomore courses. And we also heard what some of the discussions were. And for example, in English, in literature courses, one of the discussions were, can we just have a course where students read and we talk about the reading? And no. There has to be critical writing. Even in freshman and sophomore, it has to be analytical, argumentative writing. Oh yes, there can be personal reactions and journal entries, but those are not the meat. Those are just steps towards the, and in English 131, where we have not been in the habit of doing research projects, there is now writing from sources. And that, according to the listserv, is taken to mean that it is definitely a research project, some kind of research essay written. Another thing is the discussion about the content about 132 across the university. And I won't go into that, but there are issues within these courses that departments need to be conversant with and come to conclusions within themselves to see how they will go forward. So this guide is available, and so is both the AACU and LEAP. There is a LEAP Texas. It is a group that is working on the core curriculum. TSU is a part of LEAP. There is a meeting of LEAP that goes with the February assessment conference in College Station. They provide a lot of helps for us, meaning everything is on the coordinating board website, by the way, all of these things. The one thing that is not, but you can get it in other website, are the rubrics. There are a set of value rubrics for assessing learning, especially core curriculum learning, and they're available again online through the AAUP website. And you can, those are very, very helpful in setting up assessments for general education. And this part is not the part that the student needs to know, but the part that the faculty needs to know. The gen ed content, the skills and the student learning outcomes have to be assessed not only at the level of the core curriculum, but also at the level of the major program. And that means that in a capstone course or in whatever senior level course or senior level activity that you have for your majors, you also have to check off that they have shown proficiency in these course skills. And so that applies to every single major in the university, not just those that teach in the core curriculum. Any questions? Thank you.